Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and once again today I'm joined by Jim Simonetti, where we'll be speaking to John Gilmour. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you here. We're going to be speaking about your life, your love of Celtic, and your journey right up to a second 9 in a row. So take us back. You're from Coatbridge.
Yes.
What's your memories growing up there?
Coatbridge was, in the days, was a lovely place to grow up. With great friends. We played football every single night in a wee place called the Monkey Poles, and we pretended to be. I loved Beckenbauer, so I was always Beckenbauer. I was never that good at football, but that was my favourite player. As a young boy, I loved him, and I remember watching the European Cup with my dad, and it was the early 70s, and they were playing Leeds United, and I remember the ball come over and Leeds scored, and it was ruled offside, and I was cheering. My dad was going off his head because there was 7 or 8 great Scottish players in there, but Beckenbauer was always my favourite, and I ended up captaining my school team at primary level, but never really done much in football after that. But growing up, great memories of Coatbridge, a great town.
You think about players that youngsters aspire to be, or their favourite, and it's always your goal scorers or your Messi. What was it about Beckenbauer that stood out for you?
I remember watching, I can't remember the World Cup in '66, but watching clips after it. My earliest memories of football to that level was in Mexico, because it was the first time it was on a colour telly, and my dad had got some money and bought one. But I just remember the going back to Beckenbauer when he played with his arm in a sling and played against England, and just the way he played, and I just always loved him. I liked him better than Cruyff or any of the great, Muller or anybody like that. I just loved Beckenbauer. I'd love to have been him, but unfortunately, never talented enough.
Who was though? I mean, when you're growing up in Coatbridge, take us back to that. Then there's a big Celtic contingent in Coatbridge, isn't there?
Aye, there is. Our Celtic Supporters Club was Phil Cole's, and I remember I didn't go on their bus very often. I used to go with my dad in the train because we lived near the train station. But you could go down to Phil Cole's on a Saturday, and there was 20 or 30 buses all going into Celtic Park. We went on the train because we lived near Blair Hill. We got off at Carntyne and we walked. And I remember my first game, it was a Wednesday night game, and I came right out the Cubs, and I wore all my Cubs uniform because it was green and it had a wee bit of gold in it, and I thought I was the best Celtic fan ever. And my uncles were home from Canada at the time, my mum's brothers, and we all went in, and it was a night time. We took some of my cousins because my dad was, out of all the son-in-laws, he looked after always. He took my cousins who weren't maybe just so well off. We weren't well off, but they were a lot poorer. And we all used to go to the games together, and that's my first memory, was a Wednesday night game and getting lifted over the turnstile, and I'm sure we played our broth. That was great.
Your memories of going to watch Celtic, vivid as a youngster. You might only have been playing Arbroath, but to see the green and white hoops, who was playing, what kind of guys would you say were your first heroes at Celtic?
Jinky, Dalglish, Billy McNeil, because he was a centre-half like me, and just the atmosphere, and Coatbridge is a small town, and you just went in there. It was a different world altogether. Glasgow, we call Glaswegian Toonies, if they were Toonies from Coatbridge, and it wasn't a place I ever had been to other than shopping or going to the pictures to see the Sound of Music when I was away, and that's as much I knew about Glasgow. I remember one time going to Glasgow, and that was to get a record, and it was Neil Reid's Mother of Mine. He just won Opportunity Knocks, and that was a Christmas time with my Auntie Margaret, God rest her. But we never really, but to go into Celtic Park with that crowd was just phenomenal. It was great experiences.
How important back then, within the household and at the football, was music to yourself as a Celtic fan?
Well, we always sang, and we never had a lot of Irish music then, and we didn't really get introduced to Irish music till a wee bit later on in life. But my mum was one of 15, and they could all sing. My dad couldn't sing. My dad's name was Tommy, and he used to sing. We called him Tommy Bennett. He was hopeless, and my younger brother Jinky was just from an early age could sing like a bird, And I always said to my mammy, God rest her, if God would have given me Jinky's voice, I'd have taken the world on. But Jinky just didn't have the attitude for it, But he had a voice like an angel, and we used to go to Blackpool on holiday every year. And I remember it, my dad was the proudest wee man. Jinky would go in for the competitions in the North Pier, the Central Pier, the South Pier, the Talk of the Town, the Catholic Club, the Masonic Club, and he just won every single one of them, you know, Glenpool, and I forget the wee girl's name, Millie Molly Mandy, he used to sing, and there was another one, I'll scream, I forget her name now, she was the actress at the time. He beat them all, he was brilliant. I remember my dad saying they used to do a voting system where they would line the kids up, the boy here, the girl here, the boy here, and they would get, a few of them would be singing, you know, have you ever been to Blackpool Zoo? Jinky would sing the Birth, the Blues, he would sing, you know, Billy Joel, so he could sing anything, you know, Frank Sinatra songs, and from a wee boy at 8 or 9, he was just captivating. And I remember my dad saying, you know, he would get 5 votes, he would get 7 votes. He says, when Jinky finished, the sun went out because they were voting from him on the beach next door, you know, because we were in the pier. He said the sun went out, they were voting that much for him. He was just brilliant.
And a natural talent, John.
Aye. They could all sing, all the Glens could sing. My mum's family, and a lot of them ended up in the West End Theatre. Some of the offspring, you know, their brothers from Canada, they ended up in Miss Saigon, 2 of them, Andrew and his sister. But he was born with it. You're born with that. It's like football, you're born with a talent, and it was great. He could sing everything, and New Year parties were just phenomenal in the house, you know. You'd be singing for, literally in the days, 5 or 6 days. New Year parties last, you know, you would go to somebody's house for 5 or 6 days. And if coming up the weekend, we would go to my Granny Glenn's and my Granny Gilmour's, and Jinky would just sing. We could all sing a bit, but not like him. He was phenomenal.
And the name, was that down to the fact that he could play a bit as well? He
was a good wee footballer. He was Jinky, and he was a cheeky wee guy anyway, but in the park he was good wee player. You know, not as good as Thomas. Thomas was a wee bit younger, and he was a better player. He won the Scottish Football Cup. It would have been maybe 1980 with Tom Boyd, who obviously ended up playing for Celtic, and Jim McDonald, and a lot of great players from Coatbridge, and they went on and won the Scottish Cup for St Ambrose High School. So Thomas was a better player, but I think he get distracted with drinking women and gave it up.
All the usual vices.
In Coatbridge.
In the summertime, you'd go down to Blackpool, as well as Jinky clearing up with all the prizes. What are other memories you got from your time down there?
The music at the time, I remember all them, because you were getting into music then, and there's a song that related to Blackpool at the time, was The Summertime City. That was all about the pleasure beach, and how we had great times. You know, Mark was 10 years younger than me, so he spent most of the time with my mum and dad. But the 3 of us just, you know, we knew every single thing inside out, every puggy machine that would work for free, and every scam, and playing the donkey derby and passing the balls to Thomas, and he would win, and we were just the 3 rascals, you know, absolute rascals.
And about your Celtic love affair then, it's obviously started at a young age. Talk to us about growing up with Celtic and some of the experiences you've had there.
My earliest memory going myself, 2 games in particular. One was with Jinky on a Saturday, and we went, and it must have been the 9 in a row season. And I remember, again, we were playing somebody like Arbroath or East Fife or something like that, would have been at the time. And all the fans, we were watching the football, we were in the Celtic end, but we weren't concentrating too much. And then all of a sudden, everybody was cheering, and we were looking, is it a goal? What's happened? Is it a penalty? So we just started cheering with the rest of the fans, and then when it all died down, we went up to a guy next to us and he says, what's going on, mate? He says, we've just done 9 in a row. He said that was the result from somewhere else had gone in our way, and we'd won 9 in a row. And I remember the following year then, I was 16, and I went with a friend of mine from Jersey, and another 2 friends from Jersey. One sadly passed away, and I remember buying, it's going to be 10 in a row scarf. I remember buying it, but obviously we didn't do it. So
I hope we held on to it.
No, we didn't.
Definitely.
Jim, we obviously are in special times at the moment because we're into our second 9 in a row era. What's your memories of the first time then?
Great memories. Just like John, you know, going down to Celtic Park and watching the games when we were younger. And then came 74. Going to the games, just like John's saying, you go to the games and you're in there, you're young, and sometimes you're watching the crowd, you're watching the games, and it's watching where Jinky was on the park. It was watching again Big Bully, Bobby Lennox, and just to be there and to be part of it was great. But going through that whole period was fantastic, and being in the jungle and different people, the songs they would sing, it was just great. But I think there was a wee period of time, John, where people maybe were getting 7 in a row or whatever, but once we got out of that 8 and then the 9 came, it clicked back in again. Everybody was excited. The person who was excited the most at that particular time was my ma. My mama, she actually loves Celtic, and she loved the football. And she was really, really excited about getting the 9 in a row. Don't really remember too much going into 75 season. Don't really remember much of that going for the 10 in a row. But the 9 in a row, when it happened, was really special.
See, when you're born into a team that are winning every year, basically, and at that time as well, they were progressing in Europe. And people thought it was a matter of time before they won another European trophy. Obviously, that's never happened since then, John. When you then go into that period of you don't win the 10th, Rangers win a treble, Celtic win a double in 77, but Rangers win another treble, they're coming back into it. Your support of Celtic moving into your teenage years would have been a wee bit different then. Were you starting to go with your mates at that stage?
I was, we had a bus in Coatbridge called the One Road, and I used to go with all my pals then. Some of them were a wee bit younger, but we had really, really difficult times going to Falkirk and losing, Ibrox in the Cup, the Canios, first day as captain, a big tall guy from Falkirk, James, I think his name was, scored a header.
Kevin James, and then the replay, McGrillen scored against us at the wettest night ever at Ibrox, losing. I remember losing the Cup at Ibrox as well when McStay missed the penalty in the League Cup, and it was difficult times, but I literally never missed a game. It was heartbreaking, and my memories at the time were all surrounding music, and and I remember we used to have nights in Coatbridge, and we'd have bands playing for different guys, stag nights and everything, and it was always things are going to get better, and you were always you're full of optimism, and you just loved it. I never seen them winning Europe. I saw them draw in Ekeren one night, and I went to Yugoslavia in '89, just before the war, and we played Partizan Belgrade. Galloway scored. Coming home, that's the first time I met the Dumfries Supporters Club, who were a great bunch of people. I met them on that trip, and I remember at the time in Yugoslavia, for £20 you were a millionaire. It was 50,000 dinar to the pound. The only people making money at the time in Yugoslavia were the taxi drivers. Everybody was really poor, and we had a room for like £1 a night. It was phenomenal. And we got back to Celtic Park. I was on the road at the time as a young sales executive. I stayed in Dumfries that night. I travelled up with the Celtic Dumfries Supporters Club, and the score was 5-4, and Jakinovsky scored 4, and the rest assisted. We were out 6 each in away goals. So you were always optimistic, but up until after that, when we started getting a better team, it was really, really difficult times being a Celtic fan, but still enjoyable, and your mates and coming home, and get up to Dundee United. We went everywhere, and I went all over Europe as well. Talking about your European adventures then, John, you're on a European trip and your wife's pregnant. Talk us through that. She was pregnant with my daughter Erin at the time, and we were running a bus from Coatbridge, and we booked it with a local travel agent. A wee guy called David Bott, who's sadly passed now. David sorted everything for us, and we all went out, and I'm not exaggerating. At the time, I think it was 30 quid a head. We went for nothing, and we got to Cologne, and I remember my mammy phoning me and saying, "You better get your backside home here." She said, "Brenda's in labour." So we'd done a bit of work at Celtic Park at the time, me and Jim, in the dressing rooms, and we introduced to this man called Jim Colvin, who was he'd done a lot for Celtic, done catering, done stuff, and I went round and I recognised him. So the stadium was completely open. I walked right round. At the start of the second half, I said, "Jim, my wife's in labour and I really need to get home, and we're on a bus, and I can't go all the way back to Coatbridge, and because she'll have the baby, and my life's not worth living." So he introduced me to Jack McGinn and Dr. Michael Kelly, and they thought I was kidding on at first. And I said, no, I'm not kidding on. So they said, "There's the ticket. Colvin, come back. There's a ticket. Meet me outside the stadium." Back on the bus, and I got home on the team plane. First time I was ever on the team plane. And I'm sitting with some guys at nightclubs in Glasgow at the time, and they're talking, "What's the story, big man?" I said, "Well, my wife's pregnant." Gets to Glasgow Airport, and Mike Galloway said, "John, I'll take you to Bellshill Maternity." Up to Bellshill Maternity. I was in time for the birth, and a few days later we were on the back of the Celtic View. It was just a great, great story, and that gave me, a great feeling that Celtic done that for just an ordinary fan. They laid out the carpet for me, took me home, and I was there in time for it. Erin's now a school teacher, her ladies, and Motherwell, she's 28-year-old now, so it was a long time ago.
That's brilliant.
That's amazing. And by the way, big shout out to Mike Galloway as well.
Oh, aye, Mike. I've met him a few times since, and went to Vegas with him in the first Celtic convention, and I remembered him about it, and I remembered it fondly. It was, I think the guys in that nightclub, they owned Victoria's or something at the time. It was Victoria's, a big club in Glasgow, and and they were on the plane, and they introduced me to Mikey, and he took me out to the maternity in Belsill.
That's brilliant. What was your kind of memories of following Celtic in the 80s then? Because it was up and down in the 80s, wasn't it?
Aye, it was very up and down. But it's in you, isn't it? Celtic's in you, it's a part of you, and it was a part of my life. And my wife in the last 5 or 6 years had become a great Celtic fan. Then she couldn't understand it, and I used to, like a lot of Celtic fans at the time, we'd talk about the bias and, and not getting decisions and all that, and she would say, oh, load of rubbish, you're just rotten. And I had a friend at the time, Andy Flanagan, who was the youngest of a family of 10 in Coatbridge. His father was a doctor, really, really wise man, Dr. Flanagan. And I remember coming back from European trips, and old Dr. Flanagan, he was egging us at the time, and your team's rotten, Andy, and we'd be in his big house, the big mansion in Coatbridge, and you knew we were rotten, but we were just addicted to it, just addicted to it. With great memories, great trips. Young Boys of Bern, I remember walking up Young Boys of Bern. We'd stayed in Mulhouse the night before. We were walking up the place, trying to get something to eat, and I turned down, there's a music store there, and there's a full life-size cutout of my brother, Jinky. They just launched an album, and there's a full life-size cutout of my brother, and I thought, amazing, you're miles from home on a bus to see Celtic, and you bump into that, it was amazing.
That's incredible. We were speaking earlier there, John, about my dad introduced me to the Silencers, and it was Blues for Buddha album. Came home after working for a spell away, and one of the boys from Glasgow had given him this CD or recommended it, and it was on repeat for several years in our house. So talk to us. You've already mentioned about the talent of a young Jinky Gilmour. How did that develop? How did he then become the front man for the Silencers?
He moved to Canada. He was always, my mother was one of 15 children, as I said, and every one of my granny's boys moved to Canada, the late 50s and early 60s, the Glens they were called, and they set up. So we always thought Canada was a land of opportunity, and like a lot of places were at the time. And I'd never been to Canada then, but my brothers went. I always used to go on holiday with the school during summer. But they went, and Jinky thought that's the place to be. So he went out and he played guitar, and he sang, and he made a few quid, and he brought some great music back from Canada, some great songs. I got a young Canadian artist called Burton Cummins, and I remember listening to his stuff with Jinky. But Jinky went out to Canada, and he started singing with a band called the Night Watchman. They were on a gig one night, and they got asked to back. Simple Minds were there, and the Silence was there. And I think at the time they were the third support actor, maybe the fourth, but they went along. He got introduced to Jimmy. They had a wee jamming session. This was 1989, and Jimmy said, I want you to come in front of the band. Jimmy and Neil and most of the Silence were all Coatbridge boys. Jimmy was getting a wee bit older, losing his hair, and he thought, we need a front man for this new album. And it was, I can't remember, it was the album at the time, 1990, but it was a great, great album, a lot of great songs on it. And they brought Jinky in, the front man, and he was there for 9 years. So, yeah, that's how he met them. He met them in either Vancouver or Seattle.
And you're walking about Switzerland and you're bumping into cardboard cutouts of your brother.
Well, it was Mulhouse. It was the night before we were in France, and we travelled to Switzerland the next day by train, but it was in Mulhouse in France, and just about maybe 20 or 30 kilometres from Neuchâtel. But that was another story. We get to Neuchâtel. I'd been with Jim on the Saturday, in Motherwell, and we were outstanding. Galloway got injured, and we had no centre half. We put young Brian O'Neill at centre half, and we get absolutely hammered. We get hammered 4-1.
The frustration there. See, when you look back on that season, because we had a friend of yourself just recently, Jim, talking about Gary Gillespie going down to Coventry when John Joyce was down there as a young boy. But we remember Gillespie being this injury-prone centre half who very rarely played for Celtic. But when Brady took over, the priority surely should have been replace Paul Elliott.
I know.
We go over to Neuchâtel Xamax, and we're playing young Brian O'Neill at centre half, but Mark McNally played a lot that season.
He did as well.
And he tried to get a centre half eventually, Mowbray, Gillespie, but he went out and bought Cascarino, didn't he? And he was a complete flop. He was.
When we actually swapped him with Tom Boyd. Tom Boyd was at Chelsea. I remember Tom starting in the Youth Opportunity Programme at Motherwell, and we called it a yopper in the west of Scotland. You get £17 or £19 a week, and you learn the trade. And he done that at Motherwell. Ended up having a few great seasons. They won the cup. I was at that game as well in Motherwell when they won the cup. And then he moved down to Chelsea, never made it, and we swapped Cascarino for him there, and that was a great signing for us.
Great bit of business.
Aye, and then the tables turned then. We really started to become a team then. Although Tom wasn't a great commanding centre half, he was a great reader of the game. And in that cup final that I'm talking about when my younger brother played in, Tom was, although he was a toony boy, he was from Baillieston, he came out to Coatbridge for school. And he played in that team when they won the Scottish Cup. And so he was always a great player, and a level-headed boy, and the type of player that Celtic need, I always think it's better if they sign nice family men and steady guys and, not playboys really, you definitely get Lambert and all these guys we signed, they were all level-headed young boys,
So your brother joins the Silencers. Had you been a fan with the band being from Coatbridge? Were you a fan of the band beforehand?
I wasn't really, tell you the truth, because it wasn't my type of music. Me and my wife liked, different type of music from that, but and as we get to know the band and get to know the guys, and especially Jimmy, the songwriter, I had some great nights with Jimmy. I remember a great night at Jinky's stag night in his house, and but this time you're a bit older and you want to learn about lyrics of songs. And he told me what he was writing about, and he told me a night that he met Brian Keenan in Ireland, and Brian had just been released in Kuwait at the time. Terry Waited went over to get Brian released, and he got imprisoned himself. So he was speaking away to him. I do this Silencer in Ireland, and they were talking, and he said that he was how did you survive all the years, and how did you survive? He says, I was in a little lockup. He said it was like your granny stairs, below your granny stairs, and they fed me a couple of times. And he said, and I just his dream, I was back in Ireland getting stew for my Sunday dinner, and Jimmy came home and inspired him, and he wrote a song which is probably one of the greatest songs and one of my favourites. It was called Sailor's a Dream. And Jinky sang it, and the lyrics and everything. When you know the story behind the song and you listen to the lyrics, it's phenomenal. He was a great writer, Jimmy O'Neill, and I think, I don't know a lot of great stars in Scotland are in, but Jimmy O'Neill to me was a phenomenal writer. All his songs that he wrote about were all meaning and all really meant something, as well as great songs. I mean, the Real McCoy, everybody remembers that, and that was all about the European Cup, Celtic winning the European, another trip down to Paradise Way, so you listen to the lyrics, his songs in it, and him explaining them got me writing. And so I became a great Silencers fan. Me and my wife went to see them everywhere. And I remember we'd done the very, very first one and only, the Glasgow Fla, and Christy Moore was there, and we were all dancing, and the big circle is all from Coatbridge doing Irish dancing, the Choots and all the boys from Coatbridge. And I remember Jinky telling me he met Christy after it, and he couldn't believe it. He became a right big fan of the Silencers as well. So in fact, on his song, he done a song, a wee lyrical song, and he talks about being in the jacuzzi with that old whore Thatcher and everybody, and he actually, during the song, he ad-libbed and brought the Silencers into the lyrics of the song, so it was phenomenal day. That would have been 92. I'm sure that was 92, the year Aaron was born as well. So that was a great day. They'd never done another fly in Glasgow after that.
That's unfortunate. Memorable. I mean, you're mentioning Moore, and Jim and I have mentioned a few times the song The Barrowland, and he name drops Jimmy Johnston, Christy Moore, absolutely brilliant.
Great writer. Jinky introduced me to him. Jinky when we lived in Canada, he shared a room with some Irish boys, and they introduced Jinky to Christy, and then he brought it back, and we all just loved him after that, and I met him outside the bars. And I'd been talking to him, and he wrote us a letter to me and another boy in Coatbridge, John Winslow. And to this day, John says he wrote it to him, and I say he wrote it to me. And we talked about Ireland had just played in Poland, and Packy, God love him, he'd thrown one into the net and two, and then Ireland ended up drawing 3 each and going through that night. So I think they played the tie in Spain, but I remember speaking to Christy about it, and that night at the Barrowlands was a great night.
We're into the 90s, and Celtic have hit on hard times financially from the business side of things. What's your memories of that? Obviously it all came to fruition. Were you ever worried, John, that this great institution that you'd been born into would no longer be there? Oh,
I was worried, really, really worried, because things were really, really terrible. And the greatest memory I have was that night at Celtic Park when McCann came out, and I was actually interviewed on TV that time, and it was a pouring from the heavens, and my young nephew Ryan on my shoulders, and TV cameras come over to me, and I was tearful. And I remember the guy saying, "So what do you think?" I said, "Look, any money I've got, any savings I've got, and any money I can get my hands on, I'll back that man to the hilt." And I bought shares in Celtic then, and he just took us to another level with McCann. A brilliant guy. And I met him a few months later in Vegas at the first convention, and he was lovely. I had breakfast with him one morning. He was great.
We'll talk about that, certainly. Jim?
Definitely.
Think back to that moment where we were 8 minutes away from going into receivership, and when the cheque was signed. And obviously David Lowe and Fergus McCann ran up to hand deliver it to make sure Celtic didn't go into receivership. What was your thoughts back then? You'd seen the glory days yourself.
Aye, well, like John, I went and get shares as well at that particular time, and so did other people, friends and members of the family. But I remember my mother talking about it and going, "No, this can't be happening. Celtic can't be going to go bust and whatever." and it was in the paper that they were in debt, John, for that amount of money, and who was going to, they only had so many hours, 48 hours or whatever it may be, for the club to be saved. And when it happened, I remember that night as well, with the rain coming down outside Celtic Park, going to the old fruit halls, just at the Salt Market there, and listening and going, this it can't be right. There's something just no right here with all this, that we've not got any money, and we're going to be no more. And my mother going, whatever we've got to go to Celtic. We've got to go down and see Celtic. And she had none. She never really had any money, but whatever she could get, she was prepared to do that. She loves Celtic and her for all the way back. But that was a very, very, I think it was an emotional time, John, for us all. But it was hard to take in and understand, where has this went wrong? As an ordinary punter on the street, obviously we're young guys at the time and no fully understanding business, no understanding the ins and outs of a football club. But it was just a sheer shock. And I think that sheer issue was so successful because of the shock that this is no more. It's going to be no more. But how great and how wonderful was it, Paul, that all the Celtic fans got together in a time of trouble, the biggest trouble in our history, and everybody pulled together. The John Gilmours, Mr. Smith, the Mr. Joneses, whoever it may be, everybody pulled together, and everybody found money to make it happen. And everybody, like John has said, got behind Fergus McCann to say, we're way all the way, because there is no way that we've been through all these years being kept down and not being allowed to express ourselves the way that we wanted to express ourselves, for him saying that you must take the flag down, you must do this, you're this, you're second to this, you're second to that. That day, that week, in that issue, the Celtic fans came together, the Celtic people all came together, and they stood behind Fergus McCann. And well done, Fergus McCann, for coming along, because a great man he's turned out to be, and more like Fergus McCann in the game today would be absolutely fantastic.
The biggest share issue in British football history, 1994, Fergus McCann led the way, and it was his vision. Obviously, for the few years after that, John, quite a few Celtic fans started getting on his back. You met the man. What's your memories of meeting him over in Vegas?
I met him, I actually get stuck in the lift in Vegas. We went over to the first convention, and Matt McGowan was there, the Lions. It was the first time I'd ever really been in, the Lions company, and I just couldn't believe they were ordinary men like my daddy or my uncles, and they were just, Murdoch was hilarious, Bertie Auld was hilarious, Jimmy didn't come over till later on. He came over a few days later on a different play, and I just remember sitting at the bar with him, although I don't drink, you were just captivated with him, and so I got stuck in the lift, and I came down, and they gave me a voucher for breakfast at the club, and away went in. Fergus was sitting, so I thought I'll brass it and sit down when we were talking, and there was a few. He was a bright man, and he was questioning me. He didn't know who I was at first, and I told him I was just a fan. I'd been invited along. We'd done some work, me and Jim, at the dressing rooms at Celtic Park. Tommy Burns had just arrived, and we were doing the dressing rooms up because we'd done some work at Ibrox, and to be fair, the difference then was phenomenal. They had roll-top baths, they had great showers, they had all their stuff was top of the range Spanish marble. You went into the dressing rooms at Celtic Park, they still had the old bath that they threw Jim White in, and the place was a shambles. So Tommy Burns said, make sure they don't skip on this semi, make sure we do these dressing rooms right. So we got an invite in the back of that. I went along, Jim unfortunately didn't. Met some great pals who are now lifelong friends, and I just sat down with breakfast with Fergus that day. We were actually going to play golf. I didn't play golf, and I shared in the minibus with him along to the golf, and he was just a phenomenal man. You could tell right away. I was a young sales executive at the time and just making my way in life with a young family, and I wasn't a dafty, although I didn't have his brain, and you could just tell right away he was just a really, really bright man. He was going to take his places, and then with the share issue, all I remember as well how well he done for the Celtic fans, because he'd done a tie-up. I don't think you would get this now the way that the world is, but he'd done a tie-up with the Cooperative Bank. And you could actually take your shares interest-free, so it was great. And as a young Catholic boy, I was always brought up with Mammy, and I think we've got a conscience in life, and you don't bump anybody, you pay your debts if you pay your way in life. I remember my mammy always making, if she got a provi or she got a loan at the co-op, she would send you down every single week with that money. She got my dad's dig money and all her debts, and she taught me well. And you know, I'm now 58-year-old. I've never been overdrawn in my life. I've never owed anybody a penny. And I just think that's in you as a young Catholic boy. You're brought up with conscience. You're brought up to do right, and you just had to back the wee man, you know. And that obviously helped it, because I had a family at the time, and they were young in school, and you know, bills and mortgages, and it was interest free, so you couldn't resist, you know. And I've still got them up in my wall in the house, you know, my Celtic shares.
See, when you look at the great figures in the history of the club, John, and you know, from the foundation with Brother Walfred and the great early Celts right through to Jimmy McGrory, Jimmy Quinn, the Lions, Jock Stein, right up to the present day, where do you regard Fergus McCann in that list?
Right up there with anybody. You know, I see him like a Larson or a McNeil or Brother Walfred or any of them. He saved us. You know, we wouldn't be where we are now. We wouldn't be the position we were. And he was a frugal Scots-Canadian. They say the Scots-Canadians are tight. Well, I do believe that, you know, because I've got 50-odd cousins over there, and they wouldn't spend Christmas, you know, between them. They're really mean. But they went over there and they had to work hard. So every penny was a prisoner for them. You know, they didn't spend... my uncles and even now my cousins and stuff, but and I always thought he was brought up right, brought up in the Croy. He knew his tanners, he watched his pennies, and he went to Canada, made his money in the golf business, and he came back. And I think he's installed a lot in us that inner Catholic, you know, conscious, you know, don't owe anybody, pay your debts, do right in life, and you'll get it back. And I do believe that, you know. You know, you don't do any bad turn in life, and you know, there's a great saying where every doggy has its day. Well, we got our day because we were good people. That's what I believe.
No, that's a good way to look at it. Now, John, you went over there, and probably having met Fergus and some of the Lisbon Lions, you know, your holiday was made over in Vegas. But a couple of other celebrities kind of passed by as well when you were over there. Talk to us about a couple of the others that you met.
Well, we're all sitting around the pool, me and Michael McLaughlin from Cumbernauld. I just met them, although they knew my dad and my cousins and Mark Connor. And we met a great bunch of people, you know. Franco, he owned the Brazen Head. He was a lovely man. Tam Cabry. So we met a lot of characters. We're all just sitting around the pool one day, and everybody's having a drink, and the weather's great. And who pops up? Mr. T, you know, phenomenal. It was just, because you grow up watching the A-Team and Mr. T, you know, B.A. Baracus and all that. It was just brilliant. Anyway, he couldn't believe us. He took to us right away. He was, every hotel in Vegas has a celebrity, you know, and they walk them round and round the casinos. He was walking around the pool and he met us. So within an hour, we had a Celtic tap on him. He was singing Celtic songs and he's saying, "You guys are great." And there you've converted another fan. We do it all over the world, you know, Villarreal fans, Werder Bremen fans, anywhere you go, you convert them, and we converted Mr. T. So we were singing Mr. T's at him.
Because that photograph's doing the rounds on Twitter at the moment, Paul, isn't it?
It certainly is, aye. I mean, I'd never seen it.
Have you know?
I had never seen that image, and I didn't recognise you in it, John. Actually, It was Jim that says to me, "There's John," and I thought, we need to get that story. We need to get that story. There will probably be other pictures, Jim, of Mr. T with the hoops on as well.
Aye, which is brilliant. So the A-Team. I hear John talking there. He's talking very passionately about his brother Jinky, and I remember talking about Christy Moore, John. Mm-hmm. I remember going to see Jinky, going to see him, and he'd done this Christy Moore set, and the place was silent. He was that good. He was that. You remember that, John?
The Renfrew Ferry.
The Renfrew Ferry, pal.
Jinky Gilmour sings Christy Moore.
Aye. He was
packed out.
He was absolutely brilliant, and lots of good stories about Jinky. We took him by. You see, Jinky meets Jinky, so to speak, and he took his guitar out and he starts singing to Jinky, and Jinky goes, "Lad, you're no bad, Jinky says, "You're no bad, you were no bad as well, Jinky." So this is the way the conversation is going on. As I've said before, Jimmy Johnston could make you smile unbelievably, and he could make you cry at the turn of your coin as well. And anyway, Jinky Johnston had Jinky Gilmour playing some Irish songs and whatever, and see if I could get or capture that moment for you and for the listeners. It was magical. It was brilliant. See, and these are the good things in life that you remember, John. Mm-hmm. These are the good things where, you know, later down the line, you look, things happen in life, but you think back of the good things, and that we didn't want to leave Jinky's house that night, and Jinky didn't want us to leave because the wee man was just playing away and singing to this man lying back in his chair. And it was absolutely brilliant, honestly. And other gigs that Jinky done as well. You know, I was we were in Jersey, and he went up and it was a pub. We were actually with Ian Woosnam, the green jacket holder, the great golfer. So it was me, Jinky, Joe Pirrett, Big Joe, Craig, and as I say, Ian Woosnam. I think and Joe was there, God bless him, Joe Rooney, he was there. And Jinky Gilmour went up and he started singing. And again, that was maybe only about 15 years or whatever. And that's probably, the boy was brilliant. And then he sung The Green, Green Grass of Home. Unbelievable. Ian Woosnam was absolutely astounded, going, this is great. He's singing up for me. And he had that wee way about him. And, you know, and it happened once before when we were in Spain with him as well. Well, we're in Villarreal, however you want to pronounce it, was Villarreal, and we were there, and we were into this bar. He says, well, Paul would like to sing a song. Guy says, no, it's a very expensive guitar, don't let anybody come up. He says, no, but he'll be fine. He says, right, okay, I'm not too sure about letting people come up and sing. Anyway, Jinky went up and sung, and he sung a fantastic song called A Good Year for the Roses. The guy never went back up and sung again. Jinky just took her to the pub, and they loved him singing. So we've got lots of fond memories of James Gilmour. He's absolutely brilliant. We love him. We've maybe not seen him for a wee while, John.
No.
We've not seen him for a while. But we don't forget the good things and the good times as well. But a very talented boy. Very talented man, but fantastic. But somebody that could have went further in his career would have been fantastic with the Silencers and as an individual singer, you know what I mean, and songwriter. And hopefully maybe one day we'll hear him play and we'll get to talk to him or whatever it may be.
There's a thing online saying he was a member of East 17 briefly. Is that right? What
had happened was there was a road manager at the time, an Irish guy, I can't remember his name, but after he left the Silencers, he took the job as a road manager for East 17.
Yeah.
So out in the papers comes Brian Harvey, the sort of front man East 17, and said, listen kids, ecstasy's a great drug, and I drop 10 of them every night and there's not a feeling like it. So they bumped him and they took Jinky down for rehearsals, and I think it was in anticipation of a tour of Ukraine and Russia and all that, and everyone was going well. He struck up a great relationship with Tony Mortimer, who he eventually wrote some great songs with, and then they just poo-pooed him and took wee Harvey back, and away they went. And so it would have been good because it would have been a great slag, you know what I mean, deep down, and all the daft from the Silencers, a Scottish Celtic band, to a white I don't know what they were type of band, but they were. But
it shows you the adaptability, Jinky.
He
could do that.
He could sing Christy Moore, he could sing Frank Sinatra, he could sing anything, you know, he could sing anything. And, it's just a pity we don't see him a lot because, you know, life's short and we're coming up to 60 now. But listen, I've got a great family myself, Paul, and from those, you know, introductions to Celtic, my oldest daughter never went to university or anything, and she was struggling for a wee job, and I got her a job at Celtic, and she'll tell you now it was the best 7 or 8 years of her life. She worked in the front desk with a woman called Maura. She took the tours, and it's now she's Celtic fanatic. My 2 middle daughters didn't really get involved in it as much. They were Irish dancers, and then my son came along, and me and Cheryl and my son, and now my wife, are at Celtic Daft. We're a big Celtic family, you know. I've had the opportunity to fly with the team a lot to Europe and take Andrew with me, take my son-in-laws, well, at least the Celtic fans among them with me, and it's, you know, it's a family, you know. That's when Cheryl said, I'll never be able to do that, Dad, I don't know anything about Celtic. Within a week or two, she'd met Brian, another steward, and they all helped her, and you know, the amount of people that used to phone me up and say, can you, Cheryl, get me on a tour? And, you know, Michael McLaughlin, and people coming from Ireland, or people bringing people from across the world, and Cheryl, it made their holiday. That made their holiday coming to Celtic Park, because the place is phenomenal. You know, it's like a 5-star hotel.
A special place.
It is. And great memories for loads of people. You know.
See, you mentioned a couple of times there, you and Jim were doing a bit of work around about Celtic Park, and obviously at that time Tommy Burns was the manager. You'd seen him as a player, John. How special was that man? You had an opportunity to chat to him a fair few times.
Great guy, and also my brother Thomas was friendly with Peter Grant, and Tommy and Peter were great pals, and he was just so humble. You know, you would have never thought he was a superstar, or he was Celtic manager. Send me this and John that, just get it done, get the showers done, this is what I want. Don't let them scrimp and scrape. We need this. You've seen the facilities across the road. I'm trying to build someone here. He'd been on the coaching courses with Ajax, and he had a plan. And given a wee bit of time, who knows what Tommy would have done. But at the time, we just needed some success, and Fergus thought it better to let him go. And just a shame. But we brought him back, and he was there. He was there with the success, and just a humble, lovely man. And I remember going to the funeral with Jim, and it was just heartbreaking, so young, a lot young. I think he was only 55 or something when he died, or maybe even early 50s, and he was just a humble man and lovely man, and you could see that the players loved him, and guys like Di Canio and Cadetti, he sold them the story, he sold them Celtic, he was Celtic, and he explained to them how much it meant to all this. You weren't playing for just a wage, you were playing for everybody here, and a fifth of the people in Scotland, out of the population in Scotland, I'd say a fifth of them are Celtic fans, and he had them playing for everybody, and he was just a phenomenal man, and just a real pity that year. A few things went against us, but he brought in Cadetti, and I remember going down to Kilmarnock, and we did a poor game, we weren't playing well, and he brings on the Carry on Cadet, and we changed the whole game.
That's right. Me and you were at that game.
Great, great to watch, and I know they loved him. The Carry and all them still speak about him yet, and Cadetti, they all. Big Pierre, he'd get the best out of Pierre. They all went on to big things after it, But just at that time, we needed somebody, just an impact that next year. He'd had a couple of stabs at it. Fergus decided to change, and Janssen came along, and the rest is history, really. We stopped at 10, and that was one of the best days of my life.
One of the big things, talking to other, fellow Celts, is we talk about eras, and that was so important to stop that domination, John, without a doubt. But, the following season, Janssen leaves almost immediately, and Rangers start winning leagues again. And it was only when O'Neill comes in that we really become the dominant force. And it was a completely different Celtic side. I mean, the players he was buying straight out the English Premiership, and we weren't going to be bullied by Rangers anymore. What's your memories of the O'Neill era?
I remember, I don't know if it was the first game of the season or the first game was away, but probably away because we hadn't won the league the year before, and Big Sutton scoring, and just, the atmosphere about the place. Martin O'Neill, he'd been a European Cup winner, and he was Celtic. He gave you all the usual, I'd walk over broken glass and warm stones to get to Celtic. And just, you're right, the players he signed and all in the right positions. The only thing, Martin O'Neill was a goalkeeper. We never got a top class goalkeeper, and no harm to Big Rab. I met him at a festival in Fife a couple of years ago, and I was talking to him about it, and I said that day at Seville, he said, just I pushed that the other way. He said, I don't know how many times Celtic fans have said that to me. He was there with his girlfriend, he was just brilliant, he's still a big man, and me and my wife were talking away to him, pouring the rain. I can't remember, is it the Rewind Festival or something? We met him there a couple of years ago. We had a great couple of hours with him, and we were talking about it. I said, if you just pushed that to the left, big man, we'd have won that, and just laughing, but we never really had a great go. I think with Jonathan Gould first, and then Big Douglas came, but apart from that, everywhere else we were brilliant. Tosh had a good couple of seasons. We were just brilliant, we were with great players, and Val Harden, we brought him right straight from the World Cup. He had a great season. I remember going to Hearts one night, I remember him getting injured and thinking, we'll lose the league now, and he just changed it, and Lambert was probably the best side, and I think he was phenomenal. I know he didn't bring him, but he brought out the best in him. He brought out the best in him. Then wee Lenny came, and he's my hero,
Obviously McCann dragged us into the modern age with the stadium and the business and all that kind of stuff, but Tommy Burns started signing the players, the modern style players. I mentioned a few of them there, people like Cadet, Van Hooijdonk, Di Canio, there was also Andreas Thom, but he had a great file, and obviously Davy Hay helped with the scouting at that time, and two of the guys that were in this file was Craig Burley and Lambert. So as far as I'm aware, they were Tommy Burns players, identified by Burns, signed by Janssen, and as you say, Lambert really came to the fore under O'Neill.
And when you talk about the signings in Andy Thom, that's my son's nickname, that's my boy's nickname, Andy Thom. He's the same as us, he's Celtic fanatic.
A couple of boys I knew were youngsters at Celtic at that time, and I asked them about, the 4 overseas players that came in, and Tom, to their eye, at training, etc., was the best. Now, I didn't think we'd seen it as much on the pitch. We know he was a quality player, maybe too many injuries, but they reckon as a striker, a ball, all that kind of stuff. He was different class. Aye.
He was the first German to play with the unified team. He was East German, and he was the first to play in the unified German team when Andries Thom was the first East German to play in the Germany team. He was a great player. And they had a Celtic supporters club in Blackfriars and Candleriggs, and it was the Andries Thom Celtic supporters club. So he scored it that day. We played Dundee United in the cup game. It was really, really tight, and he scored a screamer, nearly took the net. He scored the 3-3 game against Rangers, didn't he, in the November?
He was a quality player.
He was a great player. So I called my boy Andy Thom. I used to sing the wee song to him as well.
We've not even mentioned the other famous number 7.
Henrik.
Aye, the bold Henrik.
Unbelievable.
In the modern day, John, is he the best we're likely to see? I mean, he was a world-class player.
He's the best I've ever seen. Lubo was phenomenal, and the day against Hibs when he trapped it with his cheeky bum. But I remember in that cup final that day, and Andrew was crying. I think 50,000 fans were crying that day. It was his last competitive game. And I said to Bom, relish it, son. I says to my son, because you'll never, ever see the likes of that man again. And I'm not sure if we ever will, We've got Edward, we had... Dembele, we've had great players and great strikers, but as an all-rounder and as a man, and also a humble man as well. I remember I was at Dumfries Celtic Supporters Club, dinner dance, and it was at Celtic Park, so all the Dumfriesers come up, stayed over. I remember one of the girls getting a little bit excited and giving him a wee peck in the cheek, and he stopped her. He said, no, I don't do anything like that, and just a humble, nice, well brought up boy as well, you know what I mean? And that's the kind of players I think we should sign, But no, Henrik's definitely the best I think I'll ever see in my lifetime. He was phenomenal. And although I saw the Lions and I saw them play, I never saw them, with the knowledge I've got of football now and going to see Celtic. But Henrik, and I remember that day, I'll never forget it, saying to Andrew, you've got to just cherish this, Andrew, because we'll never see the likes of him again. He's just superstar, absolute superstar.
We're in the process now, Johnny, completely dominating the Scottish game once again. We're going for 10 in a row. And when you look to what's happened, did it take any of the shine off the second 9 for you? The fact that we weren't there to see it? No,
because the first 3 months of this year we were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I doubted a bit. I thought like the Rangers would come and give us a challenge, and they just fell away, and I do believe it was a lot down to arrogance, because that day, not only, in my opinion anyway, Steven Gerrard and a lot of the players, but I would say 99.9% of the fans thought that day at Celtic Park they'd won the league. They had won the league, and you never think that. And Lennon took them away, he brought them back, and oh my God, they were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And their asterisks and all that, baloney. We've won the league, we've won 9, we're the first team to ever do 2 9 in a row, and please God we go on and do 10. And Rangers haven't won 5 games in a row since they came back up. Mm-hmm. What was the likelihood of them winning all their games and we losing as many? It wasn't going to happen.
Never.
And somebody was talking the other day, I think it was Gary McAllister, and they said Celtic going for 10, and their fans were going on Twitter and everywhere saying you shouldn't be saying that, they haven't even done 9. But that's just Glasgow, isn't it? That's just Glasgow. Listen, if we do the 10, nobody can doubt it. We've been phenomenal, and I was so glad that Lennon came back, because he is a Celtic man, and I thought if Rodgers ever leaves us, who better to come back than Neil Lennon? What he's been through living in Glasgow, what the press have put him through, not just Glasgow fans, Glasgow Rangers fans, but for whatever reason, well, we know the reason, he's an Irish Catholic. He's just hated, absolutely hated. Inverness fans have booed him. I've been up in Aberdeen, Hibs fans, Hearts fans, everybody, and to come and do what he's done has been unbelievable. He's playing better football than Rodgers. Now, John, me and you have been to many, many games together. Been to everywhere with Celtic. But at Cup final, that me and you were at the Scottish Cup final that we were at together, again, where history was made. On the 25th of May, it was one of the most roller coaster, emotional days, football games that I've ever been to. I couldn't sit down, Jim. You couldn't sit down? I was up and down the terrace, and in an hour's time, I had the Emirates limousine driver coming to take me to the airport. I was heading to Shanghai in China, and I sat down in that plane. As I took the escalator up to the departure lounge at Glasgow Airport, Paul, the Celtic shop was full of treble. I bought everything. I bought absolutely everything, cups and T-shirts. And I'm sitting on the plane, and a big supplier of mine's, their buyers came by me, and I'm thinking, because they're big blue noses, and I don't really show my colours to many people because it's business, and my love for Celtic's my love, nobody else's. And I didn't know you were one of them, he said, John. Massive Glasgow company that buy a lot of stuff from me. I said, well, I am. I said, all right. I thought, well, I've blown that, I might not get so many orders from them. I was in business class, they were in business class right behind me, and in the front there's 4 or 8 seats for first class. Just as that, the managing director, CEO, comes walk towards me. I'll tell you his first name was William. I thought, I'm in for it now. In the poshest Scottish accent he's ever said, he said, John Gilmour, he said, you never told me you were a Glasgow Celtic fan. I said, I am, mister, but I won't mention his name. Why didn't you tell me that? My family's steeped in Celtic. We are Celtic fanatics. I said, sit down, William. And he talked to me, he says, where did you get the stuff? I said, I bought it at the shop. I came up the escalator an hour after kick-off, and they've got everything. Can I get a couple of bits? I said, aye. So we get to Shanghai airport, and Emirates lay on a flight for you to go to the hotel. It's 1 o'clock in the morning in Shanghai by this time. We've got to Dubai 8 hours before it, and he's taking me into the first class lounge in Dubai airport, Emirates first class lounge. And his buyers and his sales executives are they're in with the schemmies in the business class lounge. He just can't believe I'm a Celtic fan. Why have you never mentioned it? I said, well, I just don't mention it because I'm here to do business with you. Anyway, we get to Shanghai, and he takes me in his stretch limo right to the airport. We had a great few days, and he's been a great customer ever since. But you've just got to watch in Glasgow who you say, what you say, and at what times. But that was a great, I just couldn't believe it. So I spent 3 days in Shanghai. I come down to a few factories. I get to Hong Kong, and I'm always aware of people. I've had a few days about Hong Kong, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I see an older man sitting with 4 bags, and he's sitting in the departure lounge in the hotel. And I said, "How are you doing?" He said, "His name's Seamus, James, but Seamus. Right. I've lived out in Australia for 50 years. I moved out there at the height of the Troubles in the late 60s. My wife's got dementia, and my 3 girls and their partners have brought me back." Flying Cathay Pacific, Australia to Hong Kong, overnight in Hong Kong, and they're flying on to Glasgow, London that night, or that afternoon. I said, "How are you doing?" And he's talking away, and are you a green or a blue man? He said to me. I said, "Well, I'm green." Then I started to talk to him about the cup final with you and Jim, and I've still got all the wee bits, from the club that day. And he said, I done radio over in Australia and all my life. I lost my son, he was telling me. I said, "What are you doing, Shamey? You're sitting here yourself. They're all away shopping and everything." I said, "Look, I've got a room up there. You better go up there and lying and having a sleep. Get up in 3 or 4 hours' time. Leave a wee note with the concierge with your bags, and your girls can come. That would be great. I'm really tired." So away he goes up, and on his way down, I gave him the T-shirt, treble, a few of the wee bits, the cup, the treble cup and everything. 5 or 6 weeks later, I get a beautiful email from him saying, "John, you made my day." He says, "When I got to Belfast, I'd seen the pals that were still living," because he was in his 80s, and I'd tell him I'd met you and the things he gave me, and they were all envious, he said. So you've made somebody's day. And it was a great day. Great.
Power of Celtic, yeah.
The power of Celtic. But these Celtic stories are brilliant. Wherever you go in the world, wherever it may be, you always make friends with people talking about football, talking about, well, in our case, John, Celtic. But that was a nice trip, John, wasn't it?
And his girls couldn't believe it. He was just a stranger.
Yep.
I said, but they were away out seeing a bit of Hong Kong that I'd seen before. So I came back to the lounge. I was sitting having a coffee, and the man's sitting on his own. And you could tell, because I've stayed in that hotel 50 times. People, give up their room at 12 o'clock. They sit in reception with their bags. Their flight isn't a 10 o'clock flight with Emirates to London or whatever. Or in his case, it was Cathay Pacific. And I thought, the wee man will be shattered sitting there. So I offered. As soon as the Celtic connection came in, and he was talking about Ireland and how he done radio shows in Australia and sang and done his bit like most Irish people do, and we had the connection. I threw him in my room. I say, "Shamey, get yourself up there and get a kip and get up and have a nice shower, and you'll be right as rain by the time you hit the airport tonight." And a beautiful, phenomenal email from him. And as he said, when he got to Belfast, his pals were so envious. He'd probably never been to a Celtic game in his life, the man. Probably never been. In the days in the 60s, it was difficult to come over to from Belfast to Celtic Park. He went away to get rid of the Troubles. He was a joiner, and he made great life, great money. And his poor wee wife was dying with dementia in the home. And the kids thought, "Listen, Dad, one last time," and they clubbed together. And a Cathay Pacific first class flight from Melbourne to Hong Kong and on and return would be $10,000 easily.
But that's the magic of John. That's the magic of John Gilmour, that he sees somebody. You'll go and talk to them, Celtic supporter, whatever it may be, and instantly you'd think you'd known John John, for years. So you just leave him to it. 2014, Celtic are invited back to Lisbon. So we were invited back to UEFA for the European Cup final, John.
It was the first time he played in Lisbon since 67.
Since 67. So we get some polo shirts made up for the Lions and John, Eddie Burns and so on. Again, a trip I was supposed to go on, but a friend of mine, he took a heart attack. So we couldn't go because we were going to meet you guys who were there and whatever. And the story is that Bertie is wearing a Jimmy Johnson top, and the rest of them are all wearing the Celtic gear, John.
Lisbon.
And
I was wearing the Jimmy Johnson.
And he's wearing it.
Bertie's was green and mine's was white.
Aye, that's right. And Bertie comes down the stairs with the Jinky gear on, and he was kind of asked politely, how you know wearing the Celtic stuff? He was, what's wrong with this? Jinky's ways, wearing Jinky's top. No, we're going to get full shoot.
The protocol for all the players that exist in living Lions was to wear, the sponsor must have gave them it, and that was what they were. Bertie wasn't having it. That night we had a great night. We met Raoul, and we met the Lions. Then recognised some of the guys from the testimonial that Jimmy played in, the older
the
Stefano and all them, and we had a great night. We were all singing, and Billy McNeil said to me that night, God rest him, he says, I want one of their t-shirts. I need one of them. I need a Jimmy Johnson t-shirt. So he was sitting. It was a great trip. Willie Wallace came from Australia. We all had a great night, and Lennon was with us.
That's right, aye.
Neil Lennon was with us with his wife and his wee boy, and we just had a brilliant night, absolutely brilliant. They took us to the Champions League final, and then on the Saturday night, Real Madrid won. They were playing Atletico Madrid, and the next day they took us to the stadium where we won the European Cup. We were all with the Lions. It was just great. Except on the way back, we bumped into two guys from Ulster there now, and they're saying, "Is that the Lisbon Lions? That'd be the Lisbon Lions, were you there?" And I said, "That is a." You don't mind me asking? He said to me, because I'm obviously white haired, and you wouldn't happen to be Jim Craig, would you?
Gilmour, I've heard lots of stories from you, but that's the best. You Jim Craig.
He wouldn't happen. He was an Ulster Red. He was a big Man U fan, and his pal was Chelsea. So they bought the tickets in anticipation that they might get there. Obviously they didn't. And I said, well, I'm not, unfortunately, but he's just about 5 in front of me in the queue there. He says, he was always my favourite. He said they were from Bangor Down, County Down. They're from Bangor Town and County Down. And you wouldn't happen to be Jim Craig. I said, thanks very much. He's only 30 years older than me, but never mind.
Brilliant. But you've started speaking about the Jimmy Johnson Academy, John. What's your experience been with this great institution here?
Oh, we've had great times. Me and Jim, our boys played together at Clyde, and then Jim started up with Jimmy Johnson Academy. So 5 years ago, we decided to go over to Jersey, to Channel Islands. We took Lubo over to Jersey a few years ago. We took Lubo Bravchik over, and he loved it. It was before you could fly direct to Jersey. We had to fly Glasgow, East Midlands into Jersey, and it was the Celtic supporters. They were all getting together for Lubo's foundation. I don't think it ever got off the ground, but they was starting up a foundation, and we took the Lubo over. We had a great weekend. I remember I was driving, they were drunk, him and his agent and boy from Dundee, lovely man, and Eddie. So I was driving Eddie's convertible car going up, and my daughter was a great Lubo fan, so I phoned her. She said, Cheryl, Lubo's on in the car, do you want to speak to him? And she was dumbstruck. I don't know what to say. But he was such a lovely man. He liked the bevy, liked the fag, and liked the dancing, and we had a great night. He was just brilliant, really down to earth. And a few years later, I was speaking to Eddie. I said, I'd love to take the Jimmy Johnson Academy over to Jersey. We need to take them over. All we boys from the East End of Glasgow, they see the Channel Islands. I don't know if you've ever been, Paul, but it's a beautiful place. Jersey's a phenomenal place. There's loads of Irish, there's loads of Scots, there's loads of Scousers, and a lot of the guys have really done well for themselves. So we made a few inquiries. They all chipped together, and we got the flights between us, and they put us up. They gave us a minibus again. I was a designated driver because I didn't drink. We showed them everything in Jersey, didn't we, Jim? And
aye.
We were going to restaurants. He was over to play the boy Jimmy Johnson. And he's come pizzas. It was a Scottish guy owned the Pizza Hut franchise. Everything on, just you help yourselves. The buffets there, batter on. They took us away every night. We got there in the Friday, and we played the team in the Friday. They called it an international select. So some of the boys, they weren't all with the big teams in London, but they were with the Wimbledons and Crystal Palaces, and some of them were with Reading, and a few of them with Southampton and stuff. But there was none of them with Chelsea then. But they were from Guernsey, Jersey, Sark, and whatever the other wee island is. And Jimmy Johnson, great night, beautiful weather, right at St Peter's. We were with St Peter's, and the game started really, really tight. Oh, the last kick of the ball, young boy Baba runs up the line. There's nothing to him. He's 5 stone, runs by the big centre half. We played with Queen's Park Rangers and sticks it in the top of the net. Oh man, alive! The place erupted. So we get in there, and after it, to be fair, they were good to us. The St Peter's themselves,
brilliant to us,
but the select guy was gutted. He couldn't believe that this team of mixed race boys from the East End of Glasgow had come out, and because Jersey is a quite upper English type area, and they don't get many migrants, other than the Portuguese that came and maybe some Polish people now. There wouldn't be very many, and they took it quite bad. They took it, and Jim done a wee speech thanking them and everything, and the guy came up and he was not a bit complimentary at all. It was really, really weird. Back at times of the 60s and 70s with the bigotry and everything.
Aye.
But God bless young Baba. He ran like the wind, didn't he? And off top.
Baba was away.
Aye.
Baba was away.
It was great. And we met a character on that trip, a guy called Charlie Days. Now, if you Google him, he was a comedian in the, you'll not remember, Paul, you're too young, but in the 70s, and growing up, you watched the comedians every night, and Stan Boardman was on it, and the guy used to do the darts programme, Jim Boner, and Charlie introduces himself. Now, he's a patron of St Peter's. He lost his wife sadly. He's born in Ireland in Port Patrick, lost his wife sadly, and he came over to Jersey in those days to do pantomime, because he was a star, because he was on. And he met a young French Jersey girl, and brought his 3 boys over, married her, and we had a great night with him. And he was also a patron of Leeds United Football Club.
That's right.
And he scouted for Leeds. And then he told us the most harrowing story, Paul, that for 30 years before that, his main ambition in life was to expose Jimmy Savile. And the hairs on her neck and her arms and everything. He says, I told everybody. I told police, I told members of Parliament, and nobody would believe me. He says, where my wife's family was a really, really affluent area, Jersey, and right next door was a school for, we would have called it in our day, Jim, naughty boys, bad boys school, boys at dog school, stole everything, but they were sent over from the English mainland over to Jersey and not in prison, but that's what they were. There was schools like it in Scotland and everywhere else, and he ran the football there, and the man Savile used to come over a lot and do what he'd done, and he said it was the day he was exposed was the best day of his life. He tried for years, wrote to everybody. Nobody would believe him.
Listen.
Nobody would believe him.
Aye. It was amazing. But there's a guy that we've got to mention, very special, when we went across. The Tommy Burns Celtic supporters were brilliant with us as well.
Brilliant.
The banners, put the banners out and all that. It was fantastic, Paul. Going down with the cup and all that, going back to the pub, and Eddie, we're going to mention Eddie Burns as well.
Aye, Eddie done a lot for us.
Aye. But Joe Rooney, who was a friend of John's growing up, and a friend of Jinky's.
Oh, aye.
Friend of Jinky's. Took time for the kids, came along to see them. He walked out with the kids before the game and all that, stood with getting his photographs and that taken. Joe had in latter life, he was a wee bit down on his luck.
Mm-hmm.
But he felt really, really special with the boys coming on. He couldn't believe Jimmy Johnson was one of his heroes, and he's in there with the kids. We gave him the tarps and all that. Mm-hmm. He went everywhere with us, and he couldn't do enough. We just been with us. He was just happy to be there along with somebody representing Jimmy Johnston, and he was a friend of Ian Woosnam and all the other ones at that particular time. But later on in life, his true friends, like the big guy sitting across from me, all got together and helped him immensely. And I got to know Joe in the latter stages of his life, the kind of man he was as well. A lovely, lovely man. And when me and John went back across, we went across when he passed away. It was absolutely lovely ceremony. And Joe Rooney, to me, is an absolute legend, lovely man, and I'm delighted I actually met him through John. I'm absolutely delighted. And he helped with all the boys on Jersey as well, so we can't forget that, John.
No. He left Coatbridge, Paul, in 1980 and took a job in Germany, painter and decorator. He wasn't a painter and decorator, but he was only 18 at the time. and he met a guy called Alec Burnett. Alex said, I'm going over to Jersey, it's a land opportunity. If you go to Jersey and work, you usually go to Jersey, and after, I think it's about 15 years, you get your qualies. Joe qualified within about 3 years. He just got right in with the in crowd and worked hard. He had a painting and decorating business, then he got into development, and he brought Tommy Burns, Peter Grant. They were members of the Celtic Supporters Club in Jersey. They were called the Sunshine Tims, because it's always sunny and they've got a tan. And he done everything. My brother went over, he looked after him.
Yep.
And the story used to be they drank in the pub on a Friday, because it was the old time tradesmen that your dad, your uncles would have been. On a Friday they finish at 1 and they bevy all weekend. And the story goes that anybody that came into that pub on a Friday afternoon from Ireland, Liverpool, Scotland, anywhere, with a Celtic strip on, they got a job. Joe would start them as a painter, plumber, electrician, joiner. He took everybody on. You know, there's hundreds of people, and including Eddie, he helped everybody to get on. And later on in life, he dealt, a blow, and a few things got the better, and one of them drinking. But he never ever forgot his old backside, did he, Joe? And there's hundreds of people in Jersey that down to Joe Rooney. You know, they were saying the guys he took on in Jersey as young apprentices, and then they married. One of the guys at the funeral was saying there's over 100 children come out of that Joe giving them a job and giving them digs and setting them up, because the money was always good in Jersey. Although accommodation was expensive, young guys didn't mind sharing with 5, 6 or more guys, but they all really, really done well, and some of them exceptionally well. He was just a phenomenal guy, and sadly he passed, but he loved that weekend with the Jimmy Johnson Academy. He absolutely loved it.
He loved it.
He was so proud, and when he walked on, Jim said, we were leaving the dressing room, he said, go and give that to Joe and ask him to lead the team out. And Eddie and his wife were outside, and we just had a great day, and every single time me and my wife went over to Jersey, because I know other people, like Jim said, so-called friends, disowned them. They literally disowned them because he didn't have anything for them anymore. But me and my wife always went to see him, and he was in my wife's class at school, a wee bit younger than me, 6 or 8 months younger than me, and whenever we were with friends and Joe would come and meet us for lunch or that night, we'd have a great, and we went to see Spandau Ballet with him a few years ago, and we had a great day, glorious sunshine, and he used to always tell all my pals that were there, and he says, Big Gilmour will tell you, he said, Brenda fancied me long before he fancied him, He was just a character in life, He had great boys, lovely wife, and he's sadly missed. He was only 55 when he died, but we all loved him to the very, very end, and that's another thing. Joe used to then phone me up for tickets. I remember coming over for the Martin O'Neill game in 2002 when we beat the Rangers, and we all ended up in Bothwell at the Bothwell Hotel, and that's where Ferguson had the fight that night. He was just outside getting in a bit of hassle with Barry, and we had a great weekend then, and just after that he started slowly going down, and then God took him away a few years ago. But he was good, great patron, wasn't he, Jim? And
brilliant.
Tommy Burns and Peter Grant and all the players of that era, they all loved it because he used to fly them all over for a big do, And the Celtic and Rangers fans in Jersey all got on great because they're away from Scotland, away from Coatbridge, away from Glasgow, and it dilutes itself a wee bit. And at the end of the day, we're all Jock Tamson's bairns, and there's a pub there, Solly Levant, and the Rangers fans go in one door and the Celtic fans go in the other door, but it's all the same inside. There's not two bits of the pub. There's not a lounge and a bar, But we had great times with Joe in Jersey, me and my wife, and I sadly missed.
Your favourite player, John?
Henrik.
That's interesting for somebody that's seen 2 9-in-a-row teams, and Henrik wasn't part of any of the two of them. Yeah. Good answer.
Aye, Henrik.
Interesting answer, right?
Best manager of your lifetime?
Best manager that I've seen and done was O'Neill, but my favourite manager is Neil Lennon. Well, with what he's come through in life, and everything else that he's, the way everybody treated him, and he's a downtrodden character. They love to see him, losing. I remember going in where my business is in Burnbank, going into a local chip shop, and the wee girl slating him, absolutely slating him with venom in him, how much she hated him. And I said, why do you hate him? I just hate him. I've never went in for fish and chips there on a Friday again. I never will.
On a Friday. Brilliant, John.
I won't, Paul, because why hate the man?
Exactly. But they can't explain why, though.
No. But we know why.
Exactly. But you're not going in there for fish and chips ever again.
Never. Hey, listen, I don't particularly like a lot of the Rangers fans that beat us and stuck up us, and wee Ali broke my heart. You know what I mean? Absolutely broke my heart. But I can't hate Ali McCoist. No, you don't hate anybody, but the venom in that. And she's a young woman, you know, she'll only be in her 30s. Wee blondie.
Forgive them, John, they don't know.
That's it.
They don't know.
Always my mammy, God rest her, saying, you know, you've got to pray for these people. Just pray for them. Say a wee prayer for them.
They know not what they do.
Correct.
John Gilmour, it's been an absolute pleasure. All that's left for Jim and I to say is thank you very much for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Appreciate it. It's my first day off since the lockdown. I've worked 7 days and some nights solid for the last 7 weeks, and this has been a great afternoon. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Brilliant, John.
Brilliant, John.
And I'd just like to say a thank you to my wife and everybody else for sticking by me, and my son-in-laws and everybody during these hard times, and we'll get through it all and we'll come out better people. And good things come to good people, Paul.